Well, hey there, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. You are listening to Becoming the CEO of Your Life, and I am your host, Janeen Alley. So today we are talking about being still and creating quality quiet. And before you moan and groan, I am going to talk about all the things. But this is one of the things that is going to help you to create that unapologetic self-trust and an unwavering conviction is being able to be quiet so that you can connect to yourself, to your mission or the work that you have in the world, and to execute on that vision that you have for your life with that cool and collected clarity and peace of mind that you want to have. So I was thinking about this episode. Actually, I think this one's been in the works for about a month, but I was creating a lot of the content for it this morning. And then I had a coaching call with one of my amazing clients today. And this is the way that the conversation kind of morphed into a conversation about getting quiet. And one of the things that she said was, I have this adverse reaction anytime someone tells me about getting quiet and being still. I think, this is so unproductive and such a waste of my time because I have so many things to do. And yet at the same time, I really know the benefits of being still. And she really does. She is one of my one-on-one clients, but she was at my wellness retreat this last summer where we did a lot of nervous system regulation kinds of things. And she was the one who told me, okay, when I left your house, I had this amazing experience the next day where I was just sitting in church and I was quiet. I was still on the inside and my mind wasn't like a pinball machine. I was just sitting there and feeling relaxed. And that is what it feels like to be still and to have that peace and presence of mind that you are seeking. There is zero fight, flight, or freeze. The sympathetic nervous system is turned off. And this is not what is happening for a lot of you on a day-to-day basis, just living your life. This is our culture, to be very much reactive and to be in that state of, fight, flight, or freeze, and everything that's coming our way feels important and it feels like it needs to get taken care of right away. But when that sympathetic nervous system is turned off, you can be in a state of peace, or it feels like you could just be laying on your back for hours, like 10 hours if you wanted to, or the rest of the night, and nothing would ruffle your feathers and nothing would bother you. When we're in this state of mind, we feel like we have clarity on next steps. We are connected to ourselves. We are connected to God, or however you want to talk about that. And even bigger emotions like anxiety or worry or despair are not that big of a deal when you're in this state. So she was asking me, okay, what do you actually do when you're quiet? So that's what we're going to be covering today on the podcast. It seems like in order to be quiet, we want to change something on the outside in order to solve the internal problems that we're facing. And when we think we have the right things in place, for example, if we think we have the right systems in place, the right staff in place, or certain people are doing certain things, or when our income gets to a certain amount, or when we don't have as many things going on, we're able to kind of offload some of these things onto employees or other people, then we will be able to have a state of peace. And none of this is true because it all has to do with nervous system patterns. What we try to do is we're actually trying to physically do things to solve our internal struggles. We're trying to look outside of ourselves so that we can feel safe or we feel ready to move forward. And it never works like that. The nice thing is human beings are ideas machines. We are meant to create. Not only that, but I know that you are someone who is capable of getting a lot of things done. But it is so easy for us to get distracted and to be overwhelmed, which makes it hard for us to execute on these ideas. So one of the things that I've mentioned before on past episodes of the podcast, which is true, in order for us to become the CEOs of our lives, we have to get good at challenging and influencing authority figures, which means we often need to slow ourselves down. We can't be in that reactive default space because for women, a lot of the default patterns that we have, like learned behaviors from school and things like that, are conflict avoidance and self-censoring and people-pleasing and tentative speech and actions, which are not going to move the needle long term. So we have to be slowing ourselves down and thoughtful in the ways that we are showing up and executing. And we have to think these things through, because even though sometimes authority figures are other people than ourselves, sometimes they're us as well. We have this voice inside of our head that tells us how things should be done, right? So, in order for us to rise above those should thoughts, or to think things through so that we can show up in a way that is outside of the ways that we've been conditioned. And like I said, I've mentioned this before on other podcasts. So if you're interested in that, you can go back and listen to some of those episodes. I'll drop some links below so that you can get a good feel for that. But we have to be able to build self-trust and conviction to execute and follow through on our ideas. So I want you to remember that we have to go slow in order to go fast. This is something that I have said since the beginning days of the podcast. And this saying comes from my days working as a river guide on the Snake River. So as a river guide, there is so many things to think about. There is the water, there's the people in your boat, there's all these things that are going on, and things can go wrong fairly quickly. And when I was guiding, I remember that summer, there was a lot of water. We had had a lot of snow and there was a lot of water runoff. And that particular spring, the water was flowing at 22,000 cubic feet per second. And so I know sometimes that feels like it on a day-to-day basis for you. You have things coming at you very, very quickly, and you want to be able to slow yourself down so that you can execute things quickly without being in that reactive state. You have to be able to decide, okay, this matters and this doesn't. We have to learn how to quiet the noise to feel good and to let these good ideas come through. And of course, there are problems to solve, right? There's problems to solve in any life, in any business, or whatever it is that you're doing. But when we are disconnected and distracted, it feels like we have 100 problems, right? Instead of just 2 or 3 things that really need to be taken care of, because there is so much noise that is going on internally. So when I talk about getting quiet with my clients, they often try to do this in the way that they do most things. And I am so guilty of doing this too. They try to force, or they try to make this happen, and they make lists and they get really serious, and they usually try to overcomplicate things and make things harder than they need to be. And I'm not saying that sitting quietly is easy, but it's not as hard as you're making it. And that is good news. So being still and creating quality quiet is so much more than not talking and not moving. It's being still inside. It's feeling peace. It is quieting yourself and connecting to you, your core, who you are, what you think, what your ideas are, what you feel, without judging. The judging piece of it is also the noise. So you're just noticing. You're working on building a relationship with you, and you're listening hard. So this has to be something that we actually initiate, because our world is too busy for this to just happen, right? We live in a world that has a counterculture of busy and anxiety and too much to do, right? So that constant movement that we encounter from our culture is counter to, of course, the quiet, but I think it's also counter to our nature. And we believe our value increases as a human being if we are constantly doing and achieving and getting things done. So for me, there has to almost be this rebellious fire against the culture, right? You've really got to buck the system. That's what you want to be thinking about when you're creating quiet, because that culture is pulling you in. You have to do these things in order to be worthy. And for me, I show up, I'm like, no, screw it. I am taking this time, because when I do, I feel good. I can think and be and not be reactive to my own life. I'm feeling calm. I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling peaceful. I'm feeling abundant. I'm feeling absolutely amazing. So you have to awaken that fire, that determination to do something opposite of what we are taught and how we live, because the cultural pull is so powerful. So you have to be proactive to settle the noise. And when I when I think about this, I think about Master Shifu. If you have watched Kung Fu Panda, Master Shifu is the little fox in the movie. He's the master. And he has these ideas that he knows who the dragon warrior is going to be. It's going to be one of his furious five. And then Poe shows up, who's this big panda who's like super uncoordinated. And it seems like in the beginning, he is the opposite of the dragon warrior. And Master Shifu is working out all of these things in the movie. And my favorite scene is Master Shifu sitting there trying to meditate. He's even chanting inner peace, and he's twitching. Like his eyes and his little ears keep twitching as he is chanting inner peace and trying to find that. So I feel like for me, that was my journey. That was my experience. I feel like Master Shifu is a little bit my spirit animal that way. But we want to really prioritize this because it makes all the difference. Like I said, it helps us to create that core connection. It helps us to develop the self-trust and unwavering conviction that we want to have when we're showing up in the things that we're doing. So what does true quiet look like? This was the question that my client asked me. She's like, what does that actually look like? What are you doing? And I have to tell you that it's not one answer all of the time. And this is good news for you because I want to give you permission to just do this your way. I know that my life is not going to look like any of yours, right? And my life has morphed over time. I do have a fairly long runway in the morning at this point in my life because my kids are pretty self-sufficient. You might not have that, but it doesn't mean that you can't find it. And it doesn't mean that it can't happen at noon or at 9 o'clock at night just because I'm a morning person. So I want you to think about how this can work for you so that you can really have and create quality quiet in your life. So the first thing is you want to think about, okay, what is the end goal? The end goal is that connection. It's listening. It is peace that we feel. Like I said, it's quieting the noise so that that inner energy is still. If we think about it on a normal day, our thoughts and our emotions are pretty high vibe, right? There's a lot of things going on. And so we want to get ourselves into that space where the thoughts and emotions are still coming, but we're not reacting to them. We have emotions and then we judge or react to those things like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling anxious. And guess what? We feel more anxious because we're anxious, right? So that's kind of what I'm saying is you can feel anxious and still feel calm about it. You're just noticing the energetic vibration. So what you want to notice, first of all, is what is coming up? What do I need? What do I want to create today? What is my message? How do I really want to spend my time? Or what do I need in order to create what I want to create today? So these are some of the questions that you can ask to kind of get a gauge on how you want to create this quiet. Because if I was to sit down yesterday to try to create this podcast content, I was pretty anxious yesterday, and there was a lot of really big emotions going on yesterday. So I would have had to do a fairly long yoga practice in order to get myself into that space, probably some restorative yoga even on top of it. It was a very anxious day yesterday, but this morning I woke up, I did do some yoga, but I was feeling amazing right from the get-go today, and I was ready to create right away. So I just needed to do a pranayama to connect to my message. That was all I needed to do. I didn't need to settle very much down. And so it really just depends. And this, if you're new to this might take a little bit of trial and error, but it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Okay. But I want to just remind you that self-trust is tied to all of this. You have to trust yourself to see and feel whatever is there, even if nothing is there. This is the hard thing, or if the message is still really muddy or really unclear. So in that case, for me, I would probably just spend a lot of time yoga-ing or meditating if the message was still pretty muddy and unclear. And even this morning, when I was getting my pen and my paper ready to jot some things down for the podcast today, that's how I start, I start by writing, and then I go to my computer and I start typing. But my brain was like, you had some things that you wanted to talk about, but we can't remember what those things are. And then it came up like, what if you can't remember? And then what if nothing comes? And I was kind of listening to that conversation. And I just was, you know what? Something has always come. I've been podcasting every week for a long time, and I've never had a week where nothing ever has shown up. I've always been able to create something. But even if nothing comes this morning, I can still write and I can see what's there, even if it's not any good. If you haven't read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, I highly recommend this book. It's really for any creative. And she talks about writing 3 morning pages every single morning to kind of clear the cobwebs and to dim down the resistance that is always there anytime we go to create something from nothing. So in order to do that, we have to have certain practices, is what I'm saying. So for her, it is writing those 3 morning pages. For me, sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's a walk, sometimes I'm journaling, sometimes I am meditating or doing some kind of breathing exercise. But the most important thing is this is intentionally creating mind space and emotional space and peace, not just physical space. So you're not just always sitting there trying to be quiet. That actually is the least effective thing for me to do. So this doesn't mean that you need to go and lock yourself in a closet and be quiet and no one's bothering you. Like I said, this is way more emotional and mental than anything else. What we're familiar with is the internal noise. We're familiar with that buzzy stuff that's going on, that high energetic frequency where your mind is thinking of all kinds of things to do and your emotions are kind of a soup of a lot of different things. So when I'm talking about quiet, I'm talking about being still emotionally and mentally. It's not that you're not feeling, but you're not reacting. You are letting the thoughts and emotions pass without giving these things a second thought or without like latching on and then, running away with a story with that. So how do we do this? Like I said, there's a lot of different ways. A lot of it is trial and error, but I will give you some pointers today. So the first thing is you want to eliminate things that are not quiet for you. So you want to dim down the outer noise. So for me, this is my phone. Okay. If I want to be quiet, my phone can't be near me at all. And sometimes what I do is I will support myself with a pad of paper and a pen right there. So if I'm trying to meditate and my brain is like, oh, don't forget about this. And we got to get this done. And there's also this. And you make sure that you're thinking about this. I just have a paper there so that I'm just emptying my brain down. So you can use props is what I'm saying, but you want to eliminate things that are noisy for you. So if you have a neighbor the other day, I was trying to meditate and my neighbor's car alarm was going off. It was pretty early in the morning. It was really, really annoying. And so I needed to move into a different room. So that wasn't as loud for me. If I had been asleep, it probably wouldn't have bothered me. But in the morning, I was like, do they hear that? Is anybody going to get that? So that's why that was annoying. So the other piece of this is you want to take advantage of your quiet times during the day. And I get that it might be 5 or 10 minutes. Take advantage of these quiet times and breathe and center yourself and do what you need to do. And like I said, you've got to create these. So when no one's around, you can create a pocket of quality quiet. So for me, this is mornings, 100%. Mornings are the easiest for me, but it might be for you, your lunch hour, 2 p.m., 9 o'clock at night. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But whatever it is, take advantage of the quiet times during the day. That'll be the easiest way for you to dim down outer noise. But you can still do this. I have dimmed down outer noise even when I'm in heavy traffic, just by turning off my radio and just by grounding myself in my experience inside of my car with my breath. So there's ways that you can dim down the outer noise by just using your mind, for sure. Okay, the second one is you can regulate your nervous system. This is key. The biggest mistake that we make as human beings is we think that what we need to do in order to regulate is to relax first. The opposite is true. You have to regulate your nervous system in order to relax. It's just not possible to do it the other way around. So I've done podcast episodes about this, but the 3 questions that you want to kind of check in for yourself is, am I safe? Do I feel safe? And then you relax your body. So am I safe? The answer is typically yes, right? Unless you're in a burning building, unless someone is chasing you, then you're not safe and then you need to get yourself to a safe space. But the second question is trickier for us because we want to use our cognitive abilities to answer this question, but it is a body question. Do I feel safe? We're often just like, yes, I feel safe. You got to connect to your body. We don't often feel safe. That's why we're dysregulated. So you want to answer that question honestly. No, I don't feel safe. And it's interesting sometimes what creates this. I was coaching somebody the other day who was not feeling safe in her house because of the clutter. So she's looking at piles of paper and she's like, doesn't make sense that I don't feel safe, but I don't. And that you have to have that honest conversation with yourself. So once you recognize I don't feel safe, then you relax your body. So you just do this by, again, using your mind to help soften your muscles. You can breathe, you can take a walk, you can walk and breathe, you can breathe and move. I mean, get into your body and relax your body. This is harder than we think because we want to rush through this process. So even last summer at the wellness retreat, again, there were women that were there that I had coached for a while. They knew my content. They knew about nervous system regulation, and it is still difficult sometimes to do for yourself because your brain wants to activate. It wants to do things in order to feel better. So I want to encourage you here to find a guide. If you don't know how to regulate your nervous system, find someone to help you do this. I am happy to be your guide, but there are tons of ways that you can do this on the internet. There are people who can teach you how to meditate and breathe and do restorative yoga and all the tools that I have. If you want my method, if you want to join me in this journey, reach out to me. I would be happy to help you with this. The last thing that I want to share here is you want to focus on staying relaxed and being the watcher of your own experience. And one of the things that I learned this last week in particular was to not use labels when we're talking about emotions, because the labels themselves sometimes have a subconscious reaction to them. So I was telling my friend Karen, I was actually seeing her for massage, and I was telling her about apathy. And she's like, what if you just dropped the word? What if you just got into your body and you felt apathy? Which, I mean, doesn't really feel like anything, right? That's kind of the definition of apathy, is we don't feel anything. But then the worst part about apathy is then we heap a bunch of judgment on top of it, right? I don't want to feel apathetic, right? And yet we do, but we do this for despondency or when we're feeling unmotivated or uninspired. We judge and then we feel bad. So what if you just became the watcher of yourself and just watched your energy? Just notice the energetic frequency of emotions that are always swirling around inside of us and be still with that. We know when we're relaxed because our life feels spacious and it feels abundant. And this is where we want to be. So don't try to trick yourself or pretend that you're feeling this way when you don't. This is the thing. You've got to be honest with yourself. The things that you want to do are amazing. And yet oftentimes they are extra. You don't have to do them, right? Even if it's for an extra income stream, right? You're getting along fine without it right now. But we often think the outcome is going to create that abundant feeling, and it's not. We have to be in that space now in order to create it. And the way that we get there is by being still and feeling peace and creating quality quiet. All right, my friends, that is what I have for you this week. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you left me a rating, reviewed the podcast, and shared it with a friend. It goes a long way to help me to reach more people and to get this message out. So that would be greatly appreciated. If you want to connect with me, you can reach me on email. You can reach me on the socials. You can also book a 15-minute unwavering woman assessment with me at janeenalley.com/CEO. I would love to chat with you over there. You're going to walk away with some amazing next steps to help you to become the CEO of your life. All right, my friends, have an amazing week. We will catch you guys soon. Take care. See ya.